Om Tvameva Mata cha Pita Tvameva Bandhuscha Saka Tvameva Vidya Dravinam Tvameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva Sri Dakshinamurti Sudeshi Kendram Dvaipayanam Sutrakritam Munindram Sri Shankaram Bhashyakritam Yatindram Maddeshi Namami Vityai Om Namo Brahma Dibhyo Brahma Vidya Sampradaya Kartrubhyo Vamsa Rishibhyo Mahadbhyo Namo Gurubhyah Sarvopa Plavarahita Pragyana Ganaha Pratyagarto Brahmaivahamasmi Om Prapanna Parijataya Totra Vetraikapanaye Jnana Mudraya Krishnaya Gita Mrtaduhe Namaha. Pranams everyone. So we are doing the 16th chapter where Bhagavan is giving the Daivi and Asuri Sampad. Daivi and Asuri Sampad, basically all mental traits can be divided into two. One is Sattvic, the other one is Rajasic or Tamasic. All the Sattvic traits come under Daivi Sampad, or it can be called as Daivi Sampad, and all the Asuri Sampad are basically the characteristics of a Rajasic or a Tamasic person. And for us to progress spiritually, we will have to move from Tamasic or Rajasic traits to Sattvic traits. So we'll have to avoid all those materialistic tendencies and focus towards spiritualistic tendencies. Within which the first three shlokas, Bhagavan is giving the Daivi Sampad. And in the first shloka, he had given 9 of those values. Abhayam, Sattva Samshuddhihi, Jnana Yoga Vyavasthitihi, and then Dhanam, Damam, Yajnam, Swadhyayam, Tapa, and Arjavam. We had seen those 9, and then in the second shloka, he had given Ahimsa, Satyam, Akrodaha. We had seen Ahimsa, we had seen Satyam, we are in the process of seeing Akrodam. Akrodam is absence of anger. This is what we started in the last class, what we did in the last class. So I'll just chant the shloka and then proceed. Shri Bhagavanu Vacha Ahimsa Satyam Akrodaha Tyagashantirapayishunam Daya Bhuteshvalo Luptvam Mardavam Hrira Chapalam. So he is listing all the Daivi Sampad, and there in the third one is Akrodaha. Akrodaha is anger, absence of anger. And we saw anger to be a state where we do what we don't want to do otherwise, where we say something which we don't want to say otherwise, where we think which normally we wouldn't want to think. And we found that anger is something that is common for everybody. Every one of us have experienced it. Nobody can say that they have not had anger at any point of time in their life. And we did a vichara to see what are the causes for anger, what are the general causes for anger, and we listed out some of them. We said dvesham is one, basically hatred. Then attachment, ragaha, is the second one. Then we saw expectation that we have on people, on things, on our life, on situation is another reason why we get angry. Then akshama, lack of patience, is another reason why we can get angry. So these are the things. And then the fifth reason we saw was where we use this anger as an instrument to get things done, as if we don't have anger, but we build this anger up, or at least show this anger to get things done. That was the fifth one. Then sixth one we saw as a hurt ego. Whenever we feel we have been neglected or disrespected then anger comes to the fore. Those are for normal people. Then for the seventh one reason, we saw that there are some people who get angry when they see adharma. So that is why some people get angry. And the last one, which is again another samanya karana, is basically we saw anger also. For some people, it is a habit. It has gone into their personality. They would be angry for no reason, or they would find reasons to be angry. So these are the 8. Of course, there are multiple Vishesha Karanam. Each situation can make us angry. We can do our own self-analysis on that. But generally speaking, the entire anger, the cause for anger, can be classified or can be contained into 2 reasons. One is raga, the other one is dvesha. Either it is attachment or it is hatred. Then we have to now do a vichara on how to overcome anger, or how not to get angry, or at least how to reduce the intensity of anger. Anger management tips. Krodha Nivritti Upaya. The key thing that we ought to have to remember right now is, whatever tips that we are giving, these tips are to be followed when we are normal. These tips cannot be applied when we are angry. At the time of anger, none of these tips will work. So we have to understand that all these tips have to be followed when we are in normal state of mind. Because once we are angry, we are not in control of ourselves. Actually, we are helpless at that point of time. So when can we use these tips? These tips have to be employed before we get angry. And even if we know these tips and we are not angry, somebody else is angry, and if we know these tips, it is not a good idea even to tell them that there are these tips for you, because at that point of time the person will get even more angry. So at that point of time, it is better to remain quiet and not do anything that can provoke them further. Because once anger takes control of ourselves, then the mind will not be in a position to accept any inputs. It will be very, very rigid. So it is better not to advise anything at that point of time. And when we are discussing anger management tips, it is important also to note that it is not possible to just remove anger alone from our personality. When there are other bad gunas, other asuri gunas, if they are there, then it is not possible to just remove the anger alone. Because to remove anger, other kind of asuri gunas also need to go out. And some good values also need to come in. Only then the intensity of the anger or the frequency of our anger can be reduced. So this is the third point that you need to know. Fourth point is, anger is something which just comes naturally. It is a secondary nature for people, for humans. We don't plan to get angry. We don't say, okay, from tomorrow 9 a.m. I'm going to get angry. Or from tomorrow 9 a.m. I will not be angry. Because anger is a part of swabhava. It becomes part of our personality. And anything that is part of our personality, if we have to remove it, it doesn't happen overnight. There are no overnight medicines for it. It can only go away slowly. And that's why some people might say, they can even make fun of us, fun of people who go to this Gita class to say, oh, you have been going for this Gita class, what is the use of it? Because you still show anger. It is not easy to get it, it is not easy to remove anger once for all from our personality as soon as we get into some kind of a spiritual class. Removing Asuri-Sampad takes a lot of time, and it has to be done step by step only. So same thing for any kind of Asuri-Sampad, including anger, there is no quick fix solution. But having said that, these tips, if we follow, there would definitely be a lot of improvement, and we can see the benefit coming through. What we will realize over a period of time, that the FIR for anger will go down. The frequency of anger will go down. The intensity of our anger will go down. The recovery time from anger, once we are in an angry mood, for us to come back to normal, the recovery time will also be reduced. So those are things that we have to remember before we go into the anger management tips. So let's take one by one. We had discussed certain causes, so we will try to match the causes with the nivritti. The first one we saw was dvesham. So what should be the anger management tip? Dvesha nivritti. Removing hatred from our mind. This is the most important method, because as I said earlier itself, manifested hatred is anger, unmanifested anger is manifested hatred is anger, unmanifested anger is hatred. We know what is hatred. We need not discuss this. We have talked about it in many classes also. Generally, we have this hatred on other people, or sometimes some people have this hatred on some animals or some objects, some things. It has gone into the personality. The problem is, once we hate someone, it doesn't matter what they do, what they speak, everything for us will induce anger. If they speak to us, we'll say, look at how haughty that person is, how that person is full of ego, his pride. If the person doesn't speak, we'll say, look at how this person is ignoring me. And if the person comes and speaks to us normally, we'll say, no, I don't want to speak to that person. So the problem is, our mind will try to find fault in everything that the other person does, or everything that the other person doesn't do also. So this is the problem with hatred. So now, to remove anger, we'll have to remove hatred. And how can we remove hatred? We'll discuss a few methods now. But understand, we'll have to use the rational part of the brain to understand these things. Because the methods that we will be discussing here are going to be a little subtle in nature. So we'll have to use a little bit of intellect and rationality here. See, generally, Upanishads say, it gives a story actually. Upanishads, there is a story where it says our mind and the sense organs, the Indriyas, it says the mind and the sense organs are both Devas as well as Asuras. They are both. So then the question will come as, what kind of sense organs are in Devas and what kind of sense organs or Indriyas are Asuras? Actually, there is no classification. The same sense organ, whenever it's actually doing good things, whenever the eyes are seeing good things, whenever the ears are hearing good things, whenever the mouth is speaking good things, the mind and the Indriyas are Devas. Whenever the mind or the eyes are doing adharmic things, ears are doing adharmic things, words are doing adharmic things, then adharmic meaning incorrect, illegal, immoral, illegitimate, whatever, then they become Asuras. And what happens is these Devas and Asuras, they get into a fight. And the Devas wanted to vanquish the Asuras. Which means, how do we interpret this? Which means the eyes have decided that I should only see the good things and not the bad things. And the ears have decided that I should listen to only good things and not the bad things. So which means I will not listen to any kind of gossip or all those kind of things. But just when those sense organs have decided, the Asura Indriyas, they attack the Deva Indriyas. So then the eyes started watching all the unwanted stuff. The ears started listening to all kind of unnecessary things and all those things. So the Devas and Asuras have always been fighting. So what happened? The Asuras wanted to get some more strength. So the Asuras actually went to the Pancha Prana. You know, if you have gone through the introduction to Vedanta, you will also know this Pancha Prana. So it went to the Pranas to convert them to Asuras as well. But there was no way they could convert or change the Prana. The Prana was always good. So this is the story. And what is this relation? How does this relate to Dvesha Nivritti? What the story means is, by the original nature, the life principle, the Prana Shakti, by the original nature, every one of us is good. Everybody is good only. The Prana Shakti is the same whether it is a thief or a policeman. When a thief sleeps and a policeman sleeps, they are the same. Nobody is bad. And why nobody is bad when they are asleep? Because the Indriyas are not present, or at least not active. When the Indriyas go into sleep mode and only the Prana Shakti is active, everybody is good only. So nobody, if we take everyone to be their Prana Shakti only based on their life principle alone, then nobody is qualified for our hatred. Their life principle, if we see a person and we see the person as a life principle, then they don't qualify for hatred. What is irritating for us is only their words, their actions, their behavior. That is the cause for the hatred. And what we have to realize is, that a person has to be or is different from the actions. The person is different from the mind. But what we do is we mix them both. We see the actions as the person itself. And if we are able to sort of distinguish the actions of the person with the person, then we can realize that no person can be disliked. We can dislike their actions, we can dislike their behavior, we can dislike their words, but we cannot dislike the person. This is, as I said, very subtle. But this attitude is very easily brought out by all the sannyasis. If you look at all the Mahatmas, they will not have any kind of dvesham. We say adveshta sarvabhutanam maitra karuna evacha. There will be no dvesham on anybody for them. Even if the other person speaks badly about them to others or in front of them, they will have no dvesham. This attitude is necessary for us to remove hatred from someone. Otherwise, what happens is, if we don't have this kind of attitude, we will realize that even if the other person changes, as in they change their attitude, they change their behavior, they change their words, what we will realize is, within our mind, we will not be able to remove hatred on them. Because we have started hating that person. So even if their words or action or their behavior will not matter to us anymore. So the key thing for us to note is how to distinguish or how to separate the person from their words, action and behavior, and not hate that person at any point of time. It is very important that hatred should not be there on any jiva rasis in this world. I've already mentioned in one of the classes, in our culture we don't say I hate it. We say dislike. Dislike is still acceptable. They say we don't like this. But we never say hate. But in Western world and in today's English, it's very common to say I hate it. And the way it has to be pronounced is the American accent. I hate it. And it has to come with a lot of stress. That's the problem with all the borrowed culture. But in our culture, we strongly believe, or we think, that nobody should hate anybody. Question might come, oh, but that person hates me. Let them be. I should not hate them back. See, I can be away from that person. I need not interact with this person. I can be away from this. I can avoid that person. That's all valid. Keeping away from the person is not equal to hating that person. So it's fine. It's the same thing. But the problem is we always mingle these both. Sometimes what happens is, when somebody ignores us in a group, in a party, in a gathering or whatever, we think that the person hates us. Because we always believe that if I have to hate someone, I will ignore him. So if this person ignores me, then this person is hating me. So it's important that we don't jump into those kind of conclusions also. And the moment we remove this hatred, we can see that the intensity of anger within us will come down drastically. Because this is the main or the major cause of anger. So we have to take a sankalpam that I will hate no one. I will not hate anyone even if the other person hates me. And how to build this? It's similar to what we do in the school days. In those days, I don't know now, we used to write imposition. To inculcate a good habit or a bad habit, we used to write we will be forced to write about one full page or 10 pages of the same thing. That I will not beat anybody, that I will finish my homework on time, that I will not hurt anyone, or whatever it is. In the same way, we have to do not writing, but we can do a japam, like a nama japam. We have discussed this in the values meditation also. When we discussed the introduction to Vedanta, when we talked about upasana, the 4 types of meditation, one of the meditation types is the value meditation, where we repeat mentally to ourselves to bring in all those good values. So here we can also do a kind of a nama japam to say, I won't hate anyone. Or if there is a specific person, then I bring that person in my mind and say, I don't have any hatred on this person. I keep repeating it. I do an auto suggestion. And by doing that slowly, I will be able to see that the hatred gets reduced. And once the hatred gets reduced, the anger gets reduced. And we will see that the frequency of anger goes down a lot. So this is the how to overcome anger if there is dvesha. Now the second one is raga. We saw the reason for our krodha is raga, the attachment. So what we didn't do, we have to do raga tyaga. We have to remove excess attachment on things. Normally we have attachment on a lot of things. Here we are saying only to remove excess attachment. We are not saying to remove total attachment. Total attachment removal will come under Karma Yoga, Upasana Yoga, Jnana Yoga. Now we are talking about anger management. So excess attachment has to be removed. I've already told you what is the relationship between attachment and anger. I like something very much, and if I don't get it, then whoever or whatever is coming in the way of me having it, they become the target of my anger. They become the casualty. They become the victim of my anger. So in a sense, anger is directly proportional to attachment. High attachment means severe anger. My intensity of anger is directly proportional to the intensity of my attachment. And we all have attachment. We have our attachments. We know others' attachments as well. That's why when we get into a kind of a fight, verbal fight or whatever, the another person, what we do? We try to prick or choose words that will cause them more hurt. We pick things on which they are more attached to. It could be their education, it could be their possession, it could be their relation, whatever. But we do know where their attachment lies. And similarly, when somebody else pricks on something that we are attached to, our anger will go up. And the moment our anger goes up, we know where our attachments are. So the attachment has to come down. And we say the attachment can be on things, it can be on people. But generally what happens is, if it is on things, initially the attachment gets very high, and over a period of time, it slowly wanes away. We pick up another attachment. Not that we will be devoid of any attachment afterwards. Say I get a new object, a new mobile phone. or a new car. My attachment is extremely high on that. I actually make sure that nobody lays their hands on it. I don't share it with anybody. I'm very particular on how it has to be maintained. It can be house, it can be my dress, it can be anything. I want to keep it neat, spick and span, all those things. But after some time, what happens? It just wanes away. It loses our interest, and we move on to another object. We move on to another person. That is what happens. But until the time we have attachment on that object, if should anything happen to that object or that person or that relation or that situation, we will get angry. So this is the problem. So excess attachment means anger. So what should we do? We should take a list of all the things in which we have excess attachment. List them out and slowly remove them. Preferences can always be there. There's nothing wrong in having preferences to start with, but attachment should not be there. I can always prefer this, but if that is not there, that is not available, I shouldn't get worried or angry or because of that. I should just let it go. And how to remove attachment? How to remove attachment? We had seen that in detail in the introduction to Vedanta class again, when we talked about all the faults on objects, relations and situations in this world. We found that there are three main doshas, faults on everything in this world that can supposedly give us happiness. That is dukkam, atripti and bandham, basically. So it gives us dukkam. When the object is going to go away, when it is going, or the relation, it can be a person, it can be somebody whom we are attached to. If that person, suppose if I have a lot of attachment with my children and the children will have to move away from me, then it is going to cause me sorrow. So dukkam will always be there. Wherever I am attached, dukkam is there. Then atripti. I am attached with, wealth, money, whatever. I am never contented. I always feel that this is not enough. So there is atripti. The third thing is it can make me enslaved. My emotions would be driven by the presence or absence of that object of attachment. If it is there, I am happy. If it is not there, I am unhappy. So I have to look into those faults and say, okay, these are things that I wouldn't want to be in this state, and therefore I should start removing those excess attachment. So how do I do it? To start with, I have to convert all my necessities into preferences. Whatever I think is needed for me, if it is actually an excess attachment, I have to convert them into preferences. Suppose I love morning coffee, and without coffee served to me, I get angry. In the morning, I need my filter coffee. If there are days that I don't get my coffee, I'll have to convert those necessities into preferences. If it's there, I'm happy. If it's not there, it's okay, equally fine. So converting my necessities into preferences, and we have to apply across everything. Just coffee is an example. Wherever our attachments are. So this is basically raga tyagaha, the second one. Then the third one is, we saw as, what is the cause for anger, expectations. So again, managing expectations is important. See, expectations for wherever we don't have any attachment, wherever there is no hatred, there are still certain places where we are angry, we get angry. And if you look at it, expectations is probably the third main reason why we are. I expect certain things to happen. I expect people to behave in this manner. So this person, I don't have any hatred or attachment. I go to an office, I expect that person to behave in a particular manner. And if that person doesn't behave in that particular manner, my expectations are not met, I get angry. So the problem is with my expectation. So expectation should always go along with acceptance. What is the counter for expectation? Acceptance. So does that mean that we should not expect anything from anybody? No, that's not what we say. Not at all. In fact, in life, whenever we do something, we do it with a sense of expectation. I do this with an expectation that it will be successful. I do this with an expectation that it will be completed. Even for as simple as crossing a road, when I actually take my step, my expectation is I will get on to the other side of the road. So there is always an expectation. We cannot do anything without any expectation. Even when a teacher teaches something, there would be an expectation that the student will understand. Even when Bhagavan gave that knowledge of Gita to Arjuna, even then Bhagavan would have expected Arjuna to understand. So there is always an expectation. So expectation is not wrong at all. There is this Sloka karmanyeva adhikaraste ma paleshu kadachana, 247 I think. This is, people misinterpret this sloka saying that Gita teaches you not to have any expectations. Do things without expectation. That is what they say. Actually, that is a wrong interpretation. We cannot do anything without any expectation. When we do it with expectation. There is nothing wrong. The only thing that we have to understand is how do we interpret the outcome. That is where the attitude change or the attitude comes into play. And what should be the attitude there? We'll see. See what happens if we just have some kind of plain expectation. I expect this to happen, it doesn't happen. What happens? It will result in anger. But if I don't want to get angry, then what should I do? I should have that expectation combined with acceptance. The expectation has to be combined with acceptance. So even if the result is not favorable to me, I accept it. I do go with an expectation, but the result, if it is not favorable, I accept it. So that should be the attitude. It is not to say do not go with any expectations, do not do any work without any expectation. Then the question is, we will not even work at all in the first place. We will not put in any effort at all in the first place. So the effort has to be there. You have every right to have expectations, but once the result comes, or when the result comes, have that attitude of acceptance. Whatever comes out as Ishvara Prasada. Bhagavan has given me, I will accept it as it is. So that is how we have to do. And this expectation acceptance will not only help us in the anger management, it will also help us in building our titiksha, our patience. One of the Shatka Sampatti of Sadhana Chatushtayam, Vivekam Vairagyam Samadhi Shatka Sampatti Visa Samaha Damaha Uparamaha Shraddha Titiksha Samadhana is one of the main virtues or main qualifications for a Vedanti. So the acceptance will also help us to build our titiksha. Now, what about the expectation? Is it right to have expectations? Yes, it is right to have expectations, but we have to understand it. What we have to understand is, in lot of places, we have wrong expectations. We have a lot of wrong expectations and we need to remove them. For example, if a person who is close to us, it could be anybody, it could be our children, or it could be our parents, or it could be our spouse, it could be our neighbor, it could be anybody. We expect the person to behave in a certain manner. In fact, we decide for that person as to how this person should behave. So this is a problem. This is a clear case of having a wrong expectation. We have this with children, with spouse, with neighbors, with friends, wherever we think this person should behave in the same manner, and we always have this scale. Sometimes what we do, we apply our scale, that I behave in this manner and therefore I expect the other person to behave in the same manner as me. That is again a wrong expectation. Or many a times we have a totally different scale for that person. We do not follow that, but we expect the others to follow that. That is again another problem, another clear case of having wrong expectations. So these wrong expectations have to be overcome. Again, how to do it? We have to do our own homework. We'll have to list out all the specific expectations and say, this is what I expect from this person or this thing. Is it right or wrong? And whatever is wrong, I remove them from my mind. I remove them from my mind to expect that to happen. And whatever is right expectation, I have certain expectations on my spouse, on my children, on my neighbor, on my parent, from my parents. Even if they are right expectations, I add the word acceptance next to it to say, okay, I have this expectation, but I accept whatever comes by. But if we really notice, what happens is, if we start writing all our expectations, we would notice that 90% of our expectations are anyway wrong expectations. And only 10% of them would be probably right expectations. But even if there are 10, we'll have to always add the word acceptance to it. It doesn't matter how it happens, what it happens, we should be able to accept it. One thing we also notice is, if we start writing those expectations on others, we will realize how unreasonable we are, because we ourselves will find it difficult to meet those expectations. Then how can we decide other person to behave in such a manner? Problem for us is, those expectations we don't have, we claim, or we will rather claim that these are things because we are forced to behave in that manner. we will give ourselves excuses as to why those expectations cannot be applied on us. But those are all things that we try to cheat ourselves. What if we do a honest appraisal? What we will realize, we ourselves are not perfect, but we expect others to be perfect. So that is the problem with us. One clear case is another expectations where we think it is a normal expectation, but a lot of people do not follow or do not meet the expectation, are places where I actually do some help. I help someone, and the other person is not reciprocating it with an equal amount of help at some other state. Or worse, this person is not showing any gratitude that this person has received my help. This person is not showing the gratitude. Or even worse, this person is not even acknowledging it, that I have helped. This is another expectation we have. What we have to understand is, when we say acceptance here is, it means accept the outcome which includes the behavior of the person. To an immature mind, a spiritually immature mind, what we will do? We'll say, I am not going to help you anymore. I'll not feel like doing anything anymore to you. For a spiritually mature mind, we'll continue to do what we do, because that person's attitude or that person's character should not change our inherent behavior or our inherent goodness. That is how spiritually mature people will behave. They will not worry about what the other person's behavior are. They are only concerned about themselves. So this is important from an expectation standpoint. So expectations, take a list, find out what are right, what are wrong. Nearly 90% of them are wrong, 10% of them right. Understand, apply to ourselves whether it actually meets the criteria, whether we accept them, whether it will be right on others to expect from us. If it is not, then remove them, move them to wrong. Even if it is right, add the word acceptance, and that includes the sense of gratitude or the sense of acknowledgement that people will have to show when they receive help. If we do that, we are not helping anybody else, we are only helping ourselves. Because the moment we start doing that, it will mentally free up our mind. We will see that our mind is much more calmer. The freedom that our mind can get from this is enormous. Swamiji used to say, to the extent that you give freedom to others to be what they are, to that extent you gain freedom. So it's very important. We'll see that once we remove all these expectations, our mind becomes lighter. We don't need to worry about why he did that, how can he do that. Those preoccupations with the mind, those all will be reduced. Remember, whenever we are possessive about certain things, the other person loses freedom, we also lose our freedom. Because wherever there is possessiveness, there is expectation, there is anger, everything comes together. So expectations management is very important for anger management. So this is the third one that we saw. Then the fourth one is we saw as impatience as cause for anger. Akshama we saw. So we have to now say building patience. You say if it's not raga, if it's not dvesha, if it is not expectation, another place where we get angry is when we lose our patience. And where we lose our patience, it has to do with our mood itself. When we are in a good mood, certain things will not make us angry. Because at that point of time when we are in good mood, we will have loads of patience. So when we have probably the children not behaving properly, if we are in a good mood, we have a lot of patience, we will accept their behavior. But when we are not in a good mood, the same thing being done by the person, we lose our patience, we get angry. Not just the same thing, even half the thing what they actually do in other days, we will get angry. So the key here is not the action of the person. The problem is we have not given ourselves some more time. So what we have to do many a times at these point of times, we have to keep calm. We should not get angry, we should not react immediately. If we keep calm whenever we get impatient, we don't spurt out, we don't verbalize our impatience, then if we notice that what happens is over a period of time, this anger will reduce and leave us. As in, after a few minutes, you will see that we are normal again. So the key is in sort of building patience. Some people are naturally patient. Some people are naturally, by swabhava, they are impatient. So question is, so it is possible for somebody to be patient. It is not that everybody is impatient, or impatience is kind of common across everybody. We can become patient. We can build patience in our swabhava. And how can we do that? Japam. Do japam or take some vratas. Mauna vrata, or in even kind of Somavara vrata. Wherever, if we do it with all this japam or vrata, we will be able to build patience. Akshama, I said. Shama means also, patience is one thing, it also means forgiveness. Again, forgiveness is very helpful in removing anger. Forgiveness is also a very important sadhana, because when we don't have forgiveness as a value, we can be sure that we will not be able to remove anger at all from our mind. The more we develop forgiveness as an attitude, the more we try to not bring the past, the more we try not to remember the bad things about the person, the easier it will be for us to actually reduce our anger. And the question that we'll ask is, when somebody makes a mistake, how can I forgive that person? Again, this is kind of a subtle intellectual discussion. It is more like a subtle discussion. What we have to do is, when this person makes a mistake, first we try to sort of picturize ourselves in that person's position. And when we say we place ourselves in their shoes, it doesn't mean that I place my character in their shoes. I basically look at everything, look at as if I have been brought up in that whatever this person went through, if I had gone through the same thing, if this person's upbringing, this person's education, this person's level of maturity, if I have all those things, how would I behave? Is how I should actually picturize myself. It's not that I actually just for that particular situation I put my character there and then say, okay, in that situation I wouldn't get angry, or I wouldn't do any harm, or I wouldn't make any mistake. It is not just that. We'll have to just look into the whole thing from the time that they had brought up their level of education, whatever. We'll have to bring them all of them together. And then if we realize, we would have realized that I would have probably done the same thing. And remember, it's not that mistakes are to be condoned. We are not saying mistakes have to be condoned. There are mistakes for which punishment should be given. Punishment is different. Hatred is different. And the punishment should be for the mistake that has been committed, not for that. I should not be giving punishment so that, I should feel satisfied until the time that this person actually gets the punishment. There should not be any linkage to my emotion with punishment. The punishment has to be only related to the mistake that has been committed. However, whether I feel satisfied with the punishment or not is not the answer, is not how I should be looking at it. And whatever punishment we give, say punishments, it could be, we can apply it in the corporate world. We are working, we have certain employees working under us, we will have people, we will have some kind of we'll have to have some kind of judgment to make, we'll have a lot of things to do. At that point of time, when somebody makes a mistake, we have to give punishment. We will have to give punishment. The only thing is that we'll have to remove this emotion from there. Punishment should not be mixed with hatred or anger. Punishment should be for the mistake that has been committed. So it should not be based on the person. It should not be based on what kind of feeling I have for that person. So forgiveness is important, and forgiveness is an attitude within our mind. So we can give punishment, but we should not get angry, because the moment we give punishment and if we get angry, the punishment is on us. It is not for this person. So we have to remember that. So these are some of the anger management tips. There are more tips for the other things that we have only seen 4 out of 8. For the remaining 5, 6, 7, 8, we will see it in the next class. Any questions or comments? Okay, otherwise we will again see it in the we'll continue this discussion in the next class. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Swasti Prajabhyah Paripalayantam Nyayena Margena Mahimahishah. Go Brahmanebhyo Shubhamastu Nityam. Lokas Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo.